How did you get in here? His voice cut through the room like ice. The board members turned, their laughter sharp and cruel. And what makes you think a street rat like you can open what the best locksmiths in New York couldn't crack? Langford leaned forward, his smile cold. I'll give you 45 seconds to prove yourself, or security throws you off this building. Elijah Brooks met his gaze without flinching. This was the man who destroyed his father. And Elijah had been listening to this safe through the vents for 4 months. 45 seconds. Open this safe, and the $157 million inside is yours. Fail, and you'll wish you never stepped foot in my building. Could a boy the world had made invisible unlock not just a safe, but the truth that powerful men buried? And if he did, would anyone believe a child with no name, no home, and no proof he ever mattered? Before we find out what happens next, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from, because this story is about to show you something about power, justice, and the invisible people around us that will change how you see the world. Trust me, you don't want to miss what Elijah does next. You hear that, Elijah? That's the sound of dreams being built. Elijah Brooks was 6 years old, standing in his father's office on the 42nd floor of what used to be called the Cole Langford Investment Tower. His father, Daniel Brooks, spun him around in the leather chair, both of them laughing as the city lights blurred outside the window. One day, son, all of this will make sense to you, his father said, kneeling down to eye level. Business isn't about money. It's about trust, about partnership, about building something together that's bigger than yourself. Daniel Brooks pulled out a small puzzle box from his desk drawer. Your grandfather gave me this. Took me 3 years to open it. Want to try? Elijah's small fingers worked the wooden pieces, twisting, listening for clicks. How do I know when I'm close? You listen, son. Really listen. The answer is always there if you're patient enough to hear it. That was 8 years ago. Before Victor Langford accused his father of embezzling $3 million from their investment fund, before the lawyers came, before the news cameras camped outside their house, calling Daniel Brooks a thief and a fraud, before his father's name became poison in every boardroom in New York, Elijah was 10 years old when he found his father in the garage, the car still running, a note on the dashboard. I'm sorry, Elijah. The truth is in the numbers. Keep your shoes. Always keep your shoes. I love you. His mother, Sarah, tried to hold things together. She worked 3 jobs, morning shifts at a diner, afternoons cleaning offices, nights doing data entry from their one-room apartment. But the medical bills from his father's funeral, the legal fees from trying to clear his name, the debt collectors who called at midnight, it was quicksand, and they were sinking. 2 years later, in a homeless shelter on a freezing January night, his mother held Elijah's face in her hands. She was burning with fever, too sick to stand, but too broke to see a doctor. Baby, listen to me, she whispered, her voice cracking. Your father didn't do what they said. He was protecting something, protecting us. She pressed something into his palm, a worn photograph of his father shaking hands with Victor Langford at a ribbon-cutting ceremony. Both men were smiling. Partners, friends. What happened, Mama? Langford, her eyes fluttered closed. Promise me you'll survive, Elijah. Promise me you'll find the truth. She died 3 hours later. That was 2 years ago. Now Elijah was 12 years old, barefoot, and living in the ventilation system of Sterling Tower, the building Langford renamed after pushing Daniel Brooks out of the company they'd built together. The basement boiler room was warm, and the vents carried sound like highways in the sky. And 4 months ago, Elijah discovered something impossible. Every Tuesday and Thursday night, when the building emptied and Langford worked late, Elijah would hear it through the vent grate above the penthouse office, the sound of a safe opening. Click, pause, click, click, pause. The same pattern every time. He started listening, really listening the way his father taught him with that puzzle box. He didn't know why he memorized it, didn't know what was inside. I didn't have a plan. Until tonight. Tonight, pressed against that cold metal grate, Elijah heard Victor Langford's voice boom through the penthouse. Gentlemen, I have a wager for you. This Garrison X500 safe contains $157 million in bearer bonds. Anyone who can crack it keeps everything inside. Laughter, champagne glasses clinking, wealthy men amused by an impossible challenge. But Elijah's heart was hammering. 157 million, the same number his mother had whispered in her delirium. The same number she said Langford stole. His fingers moved to his worn shoes, the ones his father begged him to keep, the ones he'd been wearing for 4 years, even as his toes grew cramped and the soles fell apart. He'd never understood why. Never understood what his father meant. Until now. Elijah loosened the vent grate and dropped silently onto the marble floor of Langford's penthouse. 30 men in tailored suits turned to stare at the barefoot boy in rags, standing in their world of crystal and gold. Victor Langford's expression shifted from shock to disgust. "How did you get in here?" Elijah's throat was dry, but his voice came out steady. "I can open your safe." The room exploded with laughter. Cruel, mocking laughter that sounded exactly like the reporters outside his house, exactly like the lawyers who destroyed his father's name, exactly like the world that decided his family didn't matter. But Langford wasn't laughing. He was staring at Elijah with an expression that looked like recognition, like he was seeing a ghost he thought he'd buried. "What's your name, boy?" Langford's voice was quiet, dangerous. "Does it matter?" A slow, cold smile spread across Langford's face. "You have 38 seconds. Open it, or security throws you off this building." Elijah knelt before the safe, his reflection staring back from the polished steel. Behind him, he heard whispers. Where did this kid come from? Is this a joke? Someone called security, but all Elijah could hear was his father's voice. The answer is always there if you're patient enough to hear it. His fingers found the dial. The first tumbler clicked into place, exactly where he knew it would be. Click. Pause. Click. Click. The whispers stopped, because the homeless boy was doing the impossible. And as the final tumbler aligned and the safe door began to swing open, Elijah realized with sudden, terrifying clarity. He had no idea what was inside. But whatever it was, Langford had just bet $157 million that no one would ever see it. The safe door swung open with a whisper. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. 30 men in $1,000 suits stood frozen, champagne glasses halfway to their lips, staring at the impossible thing they just witnessed. Elijah's hands trembled as he pulled the heavy door wider. Inside, stacks of bearer bonds lined the shelves, more money than he'd ever imagined existed. But there was something else, a manila folder, thick, official-looking, with a label that made his blood turn to ice. Cole Langford, Audit Confidential. His father's name. Step away from that safe. Langford's voice cracked like a whip, but Elijah's fingers were already reaching for the folder when a hand clamped down on his shoulder. Security, moving fast. The room erupted into chaos. Men shouting, "Someone calling the police. He's just a street kid," one executive laughed. Probably got lucky. But Langford wasn't laughing. He was moving toward the safe with an expression Elijah had never seen on anyone's face before. Pure fear. "Wait." A woman's voice cut through the noise. An older board member with silver hair stepped forward. The boy opened it. "You made a wager, Victor." In front of witnesses. "This is obviously a setup," Langford snarled. "Corporate espionage. Someone coached him." "Did they?" The woman's eyes narrowed. "Or are you afraid of what's in that folder?" Elijah's mind raced. His father's name was in that safe. His mother's dying words are about $157 million. The shoes his father told him to never lose. None of it was coincidence. Security was dragging him backward now. Away from the safe, away from answers he'd spent 4 years trying to find. "Wait!" Elijah shouted. "My name is Elijah Brooks. My father was Daniel Brooks, your partner." Langford went white. The room fell silent. And in that silence, Elijah understood. His father hadn't left him shoes. He'd left him a weapon. The question was, did he know how to use it before Langford buried the truth forever? "Daniel Brooks." Langford's voice was barely a whisper, but it silenced the entire room. "That's impossible." The security guard's grip loosened on Elijah's shoulder. Every executive turned to stare first at the boy, then at Langford, whose face had drained of all color. "Your father." Langford steadied himself against his desk. "Your father is dead." "I know." Elijah's voice cracked. "You made sure of that." The silver-haired woman stepped closer, her eyes sharp. "Victor, who is Daniel Brooks?" "Nobody." Langford's composure was returning, his jaw tightening. A disgraced former partner who embezzled from this company and took his own life rather than face justice. "This boy is clearly, I can prove it." Elijah reached into his pocket. 3 security guards moved forward, but he pulled out only a photograph worn, creased from being carried for years. His father and Langford at a ribbon-cutting ceremony. Partners. Smiling. The building behind them read, Cole Langford Investment Tower. Cole? An executive whispered. This building used to be. That was a long time ago, Langford snapped. Before we discovered Brooks was stealing from our investors. My father didn't steal anything. Elijah's voice rose. He died trying to prove it. Then how did a homeless 12-year-old learn to crack a Garrison X500 safe? Langford's smile returned, cold and calculated. A safe that defeated professional locksmiths? Unless someone trained you, coached you, sent you here to... Nobody sent me. Elijah's hand moved to his shoe. My father taught me to listen, to solve puzzles, to hear what others miss. Touching story. Langford nodded to security. Remove him. And call the police. Breaking and entering. Attempted theft. Wait. The silver-haired woman reached for the manila folder, still visible in the safe. If the boy's father was your partner, Victor, why is his name on confidential documents in your personal safe? Langford's hand shot out, slamming the safe door shut. That's proprietary company information. None of your concern, Victoria. But it was too late. Every person in that room had seen it. Daniel Brooks' name, in Langford's private safe, next to $157 million. And they were starting to ask the question Elijah had been asking for 4 years. What really happened to Daniel Brooks? Victoria Chen moved between Elijah and the security guards like a shield. Nobody touches this child until we get answers. Victoria, you're overstepping, Langford began. Am I? Her voice was steel. Because I've been on this board for 15 years, Victor. And I remember Daniel Brooks. I remember when this building had both your names on it. I also remember how quickly his reputation was destroyed. The room shifted. Executives exchanged glances. Someone coughed nervously. Langford's jaw clenched. Daniel Brooks embezzled $3 million from our investors. The audit proved. Then show us the audit. Victoria pointed at the safe. It's right there, isn't it? In that folder? That's confidential. You just offered $157 million to anyone who could open that safe. In front of 30 witnesses. Victoria's eyes narrowed. The boy opened it. Legally, that money is his. He's a minor, Langford exploded. He has no legal standing, no guardian. No, I'll be his guardian. Victoria's words dropped like a bomb. Elijah stared at her. This woman, this stranger, was risking everything for him. Why? You can't be serious, Langford said quietly, dangerously. Try me. Victoria pulled out her phone. I'm calling my lawyer and the press because something tells me a story about a billionaire who bets his fortune and then refuses to pay a homeless orphan would make excellent headlines. Langford's face twisted. For a moment, Elijah thought he saw pure hatred in those eyes. Then the mask slipped back into place, smooth, controlled, calculating. Fine. Langford smiled, but it never reached his eyes. The boy opened the safe. He wins. Security, release him. The guard stepped back. However, Langford continued, walking toward the safe, the contents need to be properly inventoried. Documented. This is bearer bonds. We're talking about $157 million in untraceable securities. We'll need lawyers, accountants, proper custody arrangements for a minor. We're not leaving this room without that folder, Victoria said firmly. Langford's hand hovered over the safe door. What folder? The one with Daniel Brooks' name on it. The silence stretched like a wire pulled too tight. Then Langford opened the safe, reached inside, and pulled out stack after stack of bearer bonds, setting them on his desk with theatrical care. But when he finished, the safe was empty. The folder was gone, and Elijah realized with sinking dread, Langford had palmed it, made it disappear in plain sight while everyone watched the money. The only proof his father ever existed had just vanished into a billionaire's pocket. Where's the folder? Victoria's voice cut through the room. Langford spread his hands innocently. What folder? There were only bonds in the safe. You all saw it. Elijah's throat tightened. He'd been so close. 4 years of sleeping in subway stations, scavenging meals from dumpsters, living like a ghost, all leading to this moment. And Langford had stolen the evidence right in front of everyone. The boy is clearly confused, Langford continued smoothly. Traumatized. Living on the streets does that to children. Perhaps some of this money should go towards psychiatric care. I'm not crazy, Elijah's voice broke. There was a folder with my father's name. The executives looked away, some with pity, others with embarrassment, because who would believe a homeless kid over a billionaire? Victoria's hand touched Elijah's shoulder. It's okay, we'll figure this out. But it wasn't okay. Elijah could feel the room turning against him, could see Langford's smile widening. The man who destroyed his father was going to win again. Unless, Elijah's fingers moved to his shoe. The left one, the sole his father had carefully cut and re-glued. Keep your shoes, always keep your shoes. His father hadn't been talking about the shoes themselves. He'd been talking about what was hidden inside them. With trembling hands, Elijah sat on the floor, ignoring the disgusted looks from executives, and peeled back the loose sole. Inside was a small object wrapped in plastic. His heart hammered as he unwrapped it. A micro SD card. The room went silent. "What is that?" Victoria whispered. Elijah looked up at Langford, whose face had gone from smug to pale in seconds. "My father told me to keep my shoes. I never understood why. He died wearing a matching pair." His voice grew stronger. But he wasn't protecting the shoes, he was protecting this. Langford took a step forward. That could be anything. Probably empty. "Then why do you look so scared?" Victoria pulled out her phone. "Let's find out what's on it." Right now, in front of everyone, an executive offered his laptop. The room held its breath as Victoria inserted the card. The screen flickered to life. And there, in shaky video footage, was Elijah's father alive, desperate, recording what would become his final words. "My name is Daniel Brooks. If you're watching this, I'm already dead, and Victor Langford is the reason why." Elijah's eyes filled with tears. His father's voice. After 4 years of silence, after 4 years of being told his father was a thief, a liar, a coward. "What you need to know is this. I didn't embezzle $3 million. Victor did. And when I discovered it, he framed me. The audit in his safe will prove everything. Account numbers, transfers, all of it. $157 million stolen over 6 years from investors who trusted us." Langford lunged for the laptop, but 3 executives blocked him. "I'm making this recording because Victor threatened my family tonight." Daniel's voice continued, cracking with emotion. "He said if I go to the police, if I talk to anyone, my wife and son will pay. So I'm hiding the evidence. The audit is in his personal safe, the Garrison X500. The combination is our son's birth dates, mine and his." Elijah's breath caught. That's how he'd known. Not from listening through vents. From his father's final gift. "Elijah," his father's voice softened, looking directly into the camera like he could see into the future. "If you're watching this, it means I didn't make it. It means I wasn't strong enough. But you are, son. You're stronger than both of us. Find the audit. Tell the truth. And know that everything I did, every choice I made, was to protect you." The video ended. 30 executives stared at Langford in horror. And Elijah finally understood. His father hadn't abandoned him. He'd armed him. But as police sirens wailed in the distance, someone had called them. Elijah realized the most dangerous part was just beginning. Because cornered billionaires don't surrender. They destroy evidence. And right now, that folder was in Langford's pocket, one lighter flick away from turning his father's sacrifice into ash. Langford's hand moved toward his jacket pocket. "Don't." Victoria's voice was a whip crack. But Langford was already pulling out a lighter, the kind men like him use for cigars worth more than monthly rent. His other hand reached into his inside pocket. "You're all making a terrible mistake," Langford said calmly. Too calmly. "That video proves nothing. A desperate man's fantasy before he..." "Victor." An older executive stood up, his voice shaking. "I invested with you, 23 years, my retirement, my daughter's college fund." He looked at the laptop screen, then back at Langford. "Tell me it's not true. Harvey, don't be ridiculous. Tell me you didn't steal from us." The room erupted, executives shouting, demanding answers. In the chaos, Langford's thumb flicked the lighter. Elijah saw it happening in slow motion, the flame sparking to life. Langford's hand moving toward his pocket where the folder was hidden, ready to burn the only physical evidence that could save 47 families from ruin. "No!" Elijah lunged forward. But he was 12 years old, small, weak from years of not eating enough. Security grabbed him easily, holding him back as Langford pulled the manila folder from his pocket with a victor's smile. "Gentlemen," Langford said, holding the folder above the flame, "let me show you what I think of false accusations." A fire extinguisher exploded in white foam. Victoria stood there, dripping, having grabbed it from the wall, and sprayed Langford directly in the face. The lighter flew from his hand. The folder hit the floor. Elijah broke free from the shocked security guard and dove for it. His fingers closed around the folder just as Langford's shoe came down on his wrist. Pain shot up Elijah's arm. He screamed but didn't let go. "Let go, you little rat," Langford hissed, pressing harder. "Victor." Victoria grabbed his shoulder. "The police are coming. There are 30 witnesses. What are you doing?" "Protecting what's mine." Langford's mask had completely shattered. This was the real man, the one who'd driven Elijah's father to suicide, who'd let his mother die in poverty, who'd stolen from families for 6 years without losing a single night's sleep. Elijah looked up at him through tears of pain. "My father trusted you. Your father was weak." Langford pressed harder, bones grinding. "Just like you." But Elijah's other hand, his free hand, was still moving, reaching into the folder that had fallen open. His fingers found paper, pulled. And as elevator doors dinged in the hallway, police arriving, Elijah held up a single page for everyone to see. A bank transfer, $157 million, from investor accounts to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. Signed by Victor Langford, dated 3 days before Daniel Brooks died. The room went silent. "It's over," Victoria said quietly. Langford's foot lifted from Elijah's wrist, but his eyes burned with something far worse than anger. "You have no idea what you've done, boy," he whispered. "That money? It wasn't just mine. There are people, powerful people who were promised returns. People who don't forgive. People who don't care about your dead father or your sad story." Police burst through the door, guns drawn, but Elijah barely heard them. Because Langford's final words echoed in his head like a prophecy. "You wanted the truth? Congratulations. Now you'll learn what truth costs." And as they handcuffed Victor Langford and read him his rights, Elijah realized with cold dread, exposing one monster might have awakened something far worse. The police station smelled like burnt coffee and bleach. Elijah sat in a room that wasn't quite an interrogation room, but wasn't comfortable either. Victoria sat beside him, her hand resting protectively on his shoulder. Across the table, Detective Sarah Martinez studied the folder's contents with an expression that shifted between shock and fury. $157 million, she said quietly, stolen from 47 families over 6 years. She looked up at Elijah. "Your father discovered this?" Elijah nodded, his wrist still throbbing where Langford had crushed it. "He tried to stop it. Langford threatened us, then made it look like my dad was the thief. The video recording will help, but..." Detective Martinez hesitated. "Elijah, I need you to understand something. Men like Langford don't work alone. This kind of money, moving through offshore accounts, there's a network, lawyers, bankers, maybe even people in law enforcement. Are you saying he'll get away with it?" Victoria's voice turned sharp. "I'm saying the boy might not be safe." Martinez pulled out another document from the folder. "Look at this list. These aren't just investors. Senator Patricia Whitmore, Judge Alexander Chen, Police Commissioner Robert Hall." She looked at Elijah. "These people lost money because of Langford. Some might want justice, others might want revenge, and you're the only witness." The door opened. A younger officer stuck his head in. "Detective? Langford's lawyer is here. Gerald Fisher from Fisher and Associates." Victoria inhaled sharply. "Fisher? That's the most expensive defense attorney on the East Coast," Martinez finished. "He gets guilty people acquitted for a living." Through the station's glass windows, Elijah could see him, a man in a suit that probably cost more than his father had earned in a month, speaking calmly to the desk sergeant. Behind him stood 3 more men in suits, carrying briefcases. "They're going to try to destroy everything," Elijah whispered. "Not everything." Martinez tapped the micro SD card. "Your father's video is powerful testimony, and these bank records are damning. But..." She paused. "Elijah, there's something else in here. Did you look through the entire folder?" He shook his head. The pain in his wrist, the chaos, the police arriving, he'd barely had time to breathe. Martinez pulled out a photograph, and Elijah's world tilted. It was his father, but he wasn't alone. He stood in what looked like a private club, leather chairs, dark wood, expensive paintings. Next to him was Langford. But there were 3 other men in the photo. Men Elijah didn't recognize. "Look at the back," Martinez said softly. Elijah turned it over. His father's handwriting, shaky and urgent, the real partners. "If something happens to me, they're the ones who ordered it. D.B." 5 names were listed below. Victor Langford, Richard Ashford, investment banking. Marcus Steele, private equity. James Liu, offshore holdings. Michael Torres, political consulting. The syndicate, Victoria breathed. That's what they called themselves. I heard rumors years ago, high-level investors pooling money for private deals, but nobody could prove it existed. Elijah stared at the names. Langford wasn't working alone. No. Martinez's jaw tightened. He was the front man. These four, they were the real power. Your father didn't just discover embezzlement, he discovered organized financial crime at the highest levels. The implications crashed over Elijah like a wave. His father hadn't just fought one billionaire, he'd fought five, and lost. Where are these men now? Victoria asked. Martinez was already typing on her laptop. Her face went pale. Richard Ashford, CEO of Ashford Global Banking. Marcus Steele runs the largest private equity firm in New York. James Liu owns half the offshore investment companies in the Cayman Islands. She looked up. And Michael Torres just announced he's running for governor. They'll bury this, Victoria said. They'll bury all of us. A commotion outside made them all turn. Through the glass, Gerald Fisher was arguing with the desk sergeant, pointing at the holding cell where Langford sat. My client is being held unlawfully. I have a judge on standby to sign a release order. On what grounds? The sergeant demanded. Insufficient evidence. The only testimony comes from a mentally disturbed homeless child with a history of... I don't have a history of anything, Elijah shouted, jumping up despite Victoria's restraining hand. Fisher turned, and his smile was the cruelest thing Elijah had ever seen. Don't you? Let's see no fixed address, no guardian, no education records for the past 2 years, living illegally in a commercial building. He held up a folder. We've already filed paperwork with Child Protective Services. By tomorrow morning, you'll be in state custody. Your evidence will be tied up in legal challenges for years. You can't, Victoria began. Watch me. Fisher's smile widened. Unless, of course, the boy would like to recant his story. Admit he was confused, traumatized, that he made a mistake about what he saw in that safe. The room fell silent. They were offering Elijah a choice. Tell the truth and disappear into the system, or lie and survive. Martinez leaned forward. Elijah, you don't have to answer now. I'm not lying. His voice was steady, even though his hands shook. My father died for the truth. My mother died because of their lies. I'm not giving them what they want. Fisher's smile vanished. Then you're a very foolish child. He turned to Martinez. My client will be released within the hour, and when he is, we'll be filing a defamation lawsuit against everyone in this room. You'll lose your badge, detective. Miss Chen, you'll lose your board position. And the boy? He looked at Elijah with cold calculation. The boy will learn that some fights can't be won by children. As Fisher walked away, his phone rang. He answered, listened for a moment, and his expression shifted to something almost like satisfaction. He hung up and turned back to them. That was interesting news. It seems there's been a break-in at the medical examiner's office. He paused for effect. Daniel Brooks' autopsy file, the one that might prove suicide versus foul play, has gone missing, along with all blood samples and tissue evidence. Elijah's breath caught. They were erasing his father from existence. Again. You have 8 hours before my client walks, Fisher said. I'd suggest you use that time to reconsider your options. Because after that, the full weight of the syndicate comes down on this case. And trust me, his smile returned, sharp as a knife. You won't survive it. The door closed behind him. Victoria turned to Martinez. What do we do? But Martinez was staring at something on her computer screen, her face pale. What is it? Elijah asked. She turned the laptop around. It was a news article, just posted 20 minutes ago. Breaking. Fire at downtown storage facility, destroys records. Cole Langford investment files, lost in blaze. The backup evidence. The company records that might have corroborated his father's claims. Gone. They're cleaning the house, Martinez whispered. They're erasing everything. Elijah looked down at the photograph in his hands, his father standing with the 5 men who destroyed him. The only physical proof that the syndicate existed, and then he noticed something he'd missed before. In the background of the photo, barely visible, was a reflection in a mirror on the wall. Another person. Someone taking the photograph. He grabbed Martinez's magnifying glass and looked closer. A woman, dark hair, expensive clothes, and she was looking directly at the camera with an expression of absolute terror. Written in tiny letters along the photo's edge, in his father's handwriting, "She knows everything." D.B. "Who is she?" Elijah breathed. Martinez enlarged the image on her computer, running it through facial recognition software. The name that came back made Victoria gasp. Patricia Whitmore, the senator. Wait. Elijah's mind raced. She was on the investor list. She lost money to Langford. Or, Martinez said slowly, she was part of the syndicate and pretended to be a victim. Either way, Victoria added, your father thought she had information. Information that could bring all of them down. Elijah stared at the woman in the photo, a United States senator who held the key to destroying the 5 men who'd killed his father. The question was, would she help a homeless 12-year-old boy? Or would she be the one to finally silence him forever? The senator's office was nothing like Elijah expected. He'd imagined marble columns and American flags, power and prestige. Instead, Patricia Whitmore met them in a small, windowless conference room in the basement of the Capitol building at 11 o'clock at night. She looked exhausted, her dark hair pulled back, no makeup, dressed in jeans and a Georgetown sweatshirt, like she'd been dragged from sleep. Which, according to Detective Martinez's urgent phone call, she had been. You have 10 minutes, Senator Whitmore said, not sitting down. My chief of staff doesn't know I'm here. Nobody does. Her eyes landed on Elijah, and something flickered across her face recognition. Fear? You're Daniel's son. You knew my father. It wasn't a question. She nodded slowly. I knew him, and I know why you're here. She looked at Martinez. The photograph. Daniel told me he'd hidden it. I've been searching for it for 4 years. Victoria pulled it from her briefcase, sliding it across the table. Whitmore stared at it herself in the background, watching the 5 men who called themselves the syndicate. That was taken 6 weeks before your father died, she whispered, at Marcus Steele's private club. I was there as Richard Ashford's date. I didn't know what they were planning. Didn't know they were using investor money to. Her voice cracked. I was young, ambitious, stupid. I thought these men were going to help my career. What did you see that night? Martinez pressed. Whitmore closed her eyes. Everything. They were celebrating. Langford had just convinced your father to sign off on a major overseas investment, $157 million, into what they claimed was a rare earth mining operation in Africa. But there was no mine. The money went straight into their offshore accounts. Your father was the perfect cover. Everyone trusted Daniel Brooks. His signature made everything legitimate. He found out, Elijah said, his voice tight. 2 weeks later, he came to my office, frantic, saying he'd been set up, that he had evidence they'd been embezzling for years and using his name to do it. Whitmore's hands trembled. I told him to go to the FBI. I gave him the name of an agent I trusted. What happened? Victoria asked, though Elijah suspected they all knew. The FBI agent was on Steele's payroll. He warned them Daniel was talking. 24 hours later, your father was dead, and evidence had been planted, showing he was the one embezzling. Whitmore looked at Elijah, tears in her eyes. I've carried that guilt every day. I wanted to speak up, to tell the truth, but they threatened you, Martinez finished. They showed me photographs of my daughter, 8 years old, walking home from school. They made it clear what would happen if I ever spoke about what I'd seen. Whitmore's voice hardened. So I buried it. I took their blood money, the settlement they offered all the victims, and I built my career on silence. The room fell quiet, except for the hum of fluorescent lights. Why tell us now? Elijah asked. Fisher said Langford would be released in hours. The evidence is being destroyed. You could keep hiding. Whitmore pulled out her phone and placed it on the table. Because 3 hours ago I received this. She pressed play. A distorted voice filled the room. Senator Whitmore, you have 24 hours to publicly support Victor Langford and discredit the Brooks boys' allegations. If you refuse, the photographs we have of you at our private meetings will be released to the press. Your career will be destroyed. Your family will be destroyed. Choose wisely. They're cleaning the house, Victoria breathed. Everyone who knows the truth becomes a liability. I'm done being afraid, Whitmore said quietly. She looked at Elijah. Your father was braver than all of us. A 12-year-old boy sleeping in vents and surviving on the streets to find justice shows more courage than I've shown in 4 years as a United States Senator. She stood up. I'm going public. Tomorrow morning, a full press conference. I'll testify to everything I saw, everything I know. They'll destroy you, Martinez warned. Probably. But I have something they don't expect. Whitmore pulled out a small recording device from her pocket. For the past 4 years, I've been documenting everything. Every meeting, every threat, every illegal transaction I witnessed. I've been building a case, waiting for the moment I was brave enough to use it. She slid the device across to Martinez. There are 47 hours of recordings on there, bank account numbers, meeting transcripts, names of politicians, judges, and law enforcement on their payroll. Everything you need to dismantle the entire syndicate. Elijah stared at the tiny device smaller than his father's SD card, but containing the power to bring down 5 of the most powerful men in the country. Why now? He asked again. Why not last year? Or 2 years ago? Whitmore met his eyes. Because last year, no one was brave enough to stand up to them. 2 years ago, no one had proof. But tonight, a 12-year-old boy risked everything to tell the truth. And if he can do that, her voice broke, then I can too. Martinez reached for the device, but the door burst open. Gerald Fisher stood there, flanked by 2 men Elijah recognized from the photograph, Marcus Steele and James Liu. How did you, Martinez began. Did you really think we weren't monitoring the senator's movements? Fisher smiled. Every call, every text, every midnight meeting in basement conference rooms. He looked at Whitmore. You're making a terrible mistake, Patricia. The only mistake I made was staying silent for 4 years. Steele stepped forward, his voice smooth as silk. There's still time to reconsider. Think about your daughter. Sarah, isn't it? 12 years old now, same age as this boy. He gestured at Elijah. It would be tragic if something happened to her. Something snapped inside Elijah. He'd spent 4 years being invisible, 4 years being afraid, 4 years letting powerful men make him feel small. But standing here, watching them threaten another child the way they'd threatened his family. You know what's funny? Elijah said, his voice steady. My father taught me something about bullies. He said they only have power if you let them scare you. Fisher laughed. Brave words from a homeless boy with nothing. I'm not homeless anymore. Elijah looked at Victoria. Miss Chen filed emergency guardianship papers 3 hours ago. I have an address now. A guardian. Legal standing. He turned to Whitmore. And I'm not the only one who's done being afraid. Whitmore picked up her phone and pressed a button. Everything you just said was recorded and transmitted live to the FBI field office in Washington. The real FBI, not the agents you own. Steele's face went white. You see, Whitmore continued, while we were talking, I was also on a conference call with Special Agent Rebecca Torres. She's been investigating financial crimes for 15 years. She's clean, and she's been waiting for evidence like this her entire career. She held up the recording device. She's had a team outside this building for the past hour. They heard everything. The door opened again. This time, it was FBI agents in tactical gear, weapons drawn. Marcus Steele, James Liu, Gerald Fisher. You're under arrest for witness intimidation, conspiracy to commit fraud, and attempted coercion of a federal official. As they handcuffed the 3 men, Fisher turned to Elijah with pure hatred in his eyes. You have no idea what you've started. There are others, bigger than us, richer, more powerful. They'll fall just like you, Elijah said quietly, one by one, because my father started something 4 years ago, and I'm going to finish it. The FBI led them away. In the sudden silence, Elijah felt his legs give out. Victoria caught him, holding him as 4 years of fear and rage, and grief finally poured out in racking sobs. It's over, she whispered. It's finally over. But even as she said it, Elijah knew it wasn't completely true. Langford was still in custody. Richard Ashford and Michael Torres were still free. The syndicate had been wounded, but not destroyed. Martinez's phone buzzed. She looked at the message, and her face split into a smile. Judge Chen, no relation to Victoria, just denied Langford's bail petition. He's staying locked up pending trial. Another buzz. And the U.S. Attorney's Office is opening a full investigation based on Senator Whitmore's evidence. They're freezing assets for all 5 members of the syndicate. What about the autopsy file? Elijah asked. Fisher said it was destroyed. He lied. Martinez grinned. I have a friend at the medical examiner's office. She moved your father's file to a secure location. 4 years ago, she never believed the suicide ruling. The evidence is safe. Whitmore knelt in front of Elijah, taking his hands. Your father would be so proud of you. You finished what he started. You brought them into the light. We brought them into the light, Elijah corrected. All of us. As they left the Capitol building, dawn was breaking over Washington, D.C. Elijah stepped out into the cool morning air and took his first deep breath as a boy who wasn't running anymore, wasn't hiding, wasn't invisible. His phone, the one Victoria had given him earlier, buzzed with a news alert. Breaking. Senator Patricia Whitmore announces press conference regarding financial crime syndicate. 5 prominent businessmen implicated. It was happening. The truth his father died for was finally coming out. But as they walked toward Victoria's car, Elijah noticed a black sedan parked across the street, tinted windows, engine running. And as they passed, the window rolled down just an inch enough for him to see a face he recognized from the photograph. Michael Torres, the political consultant, the 5th member of the syndicate. Their eyes met. Torres smiled cold, calculating, and held up his phone, showing Elijah a text message. This isn't over, boy. Not even close. Then the window rolled up, and the sedan drove away. Victoria hadn't seen it. Martinez hadn't seen it. Only Elijah had. And he realized with cold certainty they'd won the battle, but the war was just beginning. 6 months later, Elijah Brooks stood in front of Cole Tower. They'd renamed it 3 months ago, after a federal judge ruled that Daniel Brooks had been the rightful owner of 50% of the company's assets. Victor Langford's name had been stripped from the building he'd lorded over for so long, replaced with the name of the man he'd destroyed. Justice, it turned out, was slow. But it was real. Elijah wore new shoes now, proper ones that fit, bought with the settlement money Victoria had helped him secure. But his father's old shoes sat in a display case in the lobby of Cole Tower, next to a plaque that read, Daniel Brooks, a man who chose truth over silence. You ready? Victoria stood beside him, her hand on his shoulder. She'd officially adopted him 2 months ago. The paperwork had been complicated. He was 12, almost 13 now, and the system didn't usually move that fast. But Senator Whitmore had called in favors, and Detective Martinez had vouched for Victoria's character, and somehow, for the first time in 4 years, Elijah had a home. A real home. With a bedroom and a desk and books and everything a kid was supposed to have. I'm ready, he said. They walked into the building together. The security guard, a new one, hired after the old regime was cleared out, smiled and nodded at them. Morning, Mr. Brooks? Miss Chen. Mr. Brooks. It still sounded strange, but also right. The elevator took them to the 42nd floor, his father's old office, now restored and turned into the Daniel Brooks Foundation headquarters. The foundation Victoria had helped Elijah establish, using a portion of the settlement money to help homeless youth get education, housing, and legal support. Kids like he'd been 6 months ago. Invisible kids who deserved to be seen. Inside, the team was already gathering social workers, lawyers, youth advocates, and in the corner, looking uncomfortable in a suit, was Detective Martinez. She'd taken a leave of absence from the police force to serve as the foundation's security director. Too many corrupt cops, she'd told Elijah. I'd rather protect kids than work with people who'd sell them out. The morning meeting focused on their expansion, opening 3 new shelters in Boston, Philadelphia, and Baltimore, helping 47 kids get off the streets. 47. One for each family the syndicate had destroyed. After the meeting, Elijah stood at the window of his father's old office, looking out at the city that had tried to swallow him whole. His phone buzzed. A news alert. Victor Langford, sentenced to 25 years in federal prison for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Another buzz. Marcus Steele accepts plea deal. 18 years in exchange for testimony against remaining syndicate members. They were falling, one by one. Just like he'd promised. Richard Ashford had fled to Monaco, but extradition proceedings were underway. James Liu was fighting charges in the Cayman Islands. And Michael Torres, Elijah's jaw tightened. Torres had been the smartest. He'd buried his involvement deep, used shell companies and intermediaries. The evidence against him was circumstantial at best. 2 weeks ago, the U.S. attorney had announced they didn't have enough to prosecute. Torres was walking free. Stop thinking about him, Victoria said, appearing beside him. You did everything you could. It's not enough. He's still out there. For now. She handed him an envelope. This came this morning, from Senator Whitmore. Elijah opened it. Inside was a handwritten note. Elijah, I wanted you to hear this from me first. I've been appointed to the Senate Oversight Committee investigating political corruption. We've subpoenaed Michael Torres to testify about his connection to offshore financial crimes. He can run, but he can't hide forever. Your father started this fight. You carried it forward. And I'm going to finish it. With gratitude and respect, Patricia Whitmore. Elijah folded the note carefully. It wasn't over. Maybe it would never be completely over. Men like Torres always found new shadows to hide in. But they weren't hiding from an invisible homeless boy anymore. They were hiding from a movement, from a foundation, from people who refused to look away. Come on, Victoria said. There's something I want to show you. She led him down to the lobby, where a crowd had gathered. Elijah's heart sank. He hated crowds, hated attention. But as they got closer, he saw what was happening. 47 kids, the ones the foundation had helped, standing in a semicircle, each holding a candle. They wanted to thank you, Victoria whispered. A girl about his age stepped forward, Maria, who'd been living in a subway station when the foundation found her. You gave us our voices back, she said simply. We wanted to give you something too. She handed him a leather-bound book. Inside, each kid had written a page, their stories, their struggles, their gratitude. 47 voices that had been invisible, now speaking loud and clear. Elijah's throat tightened as he read their words. Kids who'd survived things he understood too well. Kids who'd been told they didn't matter. You matter, he said to them, his voice rough with emotion. All of you. Don't let anyone tell you different. As the crowd dispersed, Elijah stayed in the lobby, sitting cross-legged in front of his father's shoes in their display case. Victoria gave him space, understanding he needed this moment alone. I did it, Dad, Elijah whispered. I finished what you started. It took 4 years, but I finished it. For a moment, he could almost hear his father's voice. Asterisk, you've got the gift, son. You hear what others miss. Asterisk. Elijah smiled through tears. He'd learned to hear the safe's combination through ventilation shafts, but that wasn't the real gift his father had given him. The real gift was learning to listen to the truth buried in lies, to the voices society tried to silence, to the sound of his own courage when fear told him to stay quiet. His phone buzzed one more time. An unknown number. Against his better judgment, he answered. Hello, Elijah. Michael Torres's voice was smooth, unbothered. I wanted to congratulate you. You've done what seemed impossible. You brought down the syndicate. Well, most of it. Elijah's hand tightened on the phone. You're wondering if I'm calling to threaten you, Torres continued. I'm not. I'm calling to make you an offer. You're 13 years old, and you've already shown remarkable intelligence, strategic thinking, the ability to inspire others. In 10 years, you could be running for office, and when you do, I'd like to help. You want to buy me, Elijah said flatly. I want to invest in potential. Your father made the mistake of being too rigid, too idealistic. But you've lived on the streets. You understand how the real world works, how power works. Join me, and I'll show you how to change the system from the inside. Fight me, and you'll spend your life tilting at windmills while people like me continue to win. For one moment, just one Elijah was tempted. Because Torres was right about one thing. The system was broken. And maybe the only way to fix it was from the inside. Then he looked at his father's shoes in the display case, at the plaque bearing his name, at the foundation built on his sacrifice. My father taught me something, Elijah said quietly. He taught me that some things are worth more than winning, like integrity, like truth, like knowing you can sleep at night because you didn't sell your soul to monsters. You'll regret this, Torres said, his smooth voice turning cold. Maybe, but I'll regret it as someone my father would be proud of. Elijah took a breath. And Mr. Torres? That subpoena Senator Whitmore is preparing? I'm testifying too. Every word you just said to me was recorded. Every threat, every attempt at corruption. So when you go to prison, and you will go to prison, you'll know it was because you underestimated an invisible boy one too many times. He hung up. His hands were shaking, but he was smiling. Victoria appeared beside him. Was that? Yeah. Elijah handed her the phone. Better get this to Martinez. Add it to the evidence file. She pulled him into a hug. Your father would be so proud. I know, Elijah whispered. I finally know. That night, back in the home Victoria had given him, Elijah sat at his desk doing homework, actual homework, from an actual school, with actual teachers who knew his name. His bedroom had a window that looked out at the city, and for the first time in 4 years, he could look at those lights without feeling lost. On his nightstand sat 2 photographs. One of his father's, smiling, whole, before the syndicate destroyed him. One of his mother's, holding Elijah when he was small, her eyes full of love and hope. "I miss you," he told them, "every day. But I'm okay now. I'm going to be okay." The city lights twinkled like stars. And for the first time since he was 10 years old, Elijah Brooks, the boy who'd learned to be invisible to survive, closed his eyes and dreamed of a future where he could finally, truly be seen. Not as a victim, not as a survivor, but as someone who'd taken the gift his father gave him, the ability to hear what others missed and used it to give voice to the voiceless. The invisible boy had become the light. And no shadow, no matter how powerful, could put that light out. Have you ever felt invisible? Like the world looked right through you? Elijah's story reminds us that those society ignores often see the clearest truth. If this story touched you, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Share your own moment when you refuse to stay silent. Because your voice matters, your story matters, you matter. Subscribe for more stories about ordinary people who did extraordinary things. Your next chapter of courage could start right now.